Hey guys, it's Ben. How's it going? Happy Monday to you. It's been one hell of a good week for me. I hope it's been a hell of a good week for you too. Those of you that don't know, this is my weekly vlog. This is when I come in and I weigh in. This is where it hits the pavement right here, really. I don't weigh in except for this time every week with you guys. So it's as much a surprise to me as it is to you. Why do I do this every week? This is to help motivate me because I lost a ton of weight, right? I got down to my goal weight and I want to keep it off, right? So I'm very hyper vigilant in this. So I know I can't be trusted on my own because I've done that many times. I've lost weight on my own, trusted myself to keep it off, and then just immediately put it back on, right? I didn't really have anybody holding me accountable. I do have a wonderful wife. Her name is Karen, who she's awesome and she supports me in everything that I do. Unfortunately, one of those things was obesity, right? Not that she was supporting me in a bad way. It's just she doesn't like saying negative things, right? And she loved me any way I was. And I love her about that. But her love, I think, would have been better placed had she gotten on me about my weight and say something along the lines of, I want you to live longer. But the problem was she was also obese. We got obese together. Now we're getting unobese together. I've already made it and she's well on her way. She's doing it all naturally by herself. I'm very proud of her. You'll meet her in the vlogs because she joins me every once in a while, but not today. Today, I wanted to talk about obesity and how it runs in my family. At least that's what I used to tell people, right? We're going to get to the weigh-in part pretty soon. We're also going to talk about my blood sugars because I was a diabetic, or I am a diabetic, but Mounjaro got me off the diabetes medicine, right? I'm off Mounjaro is what I'm trying to say. I'm not on any diabetes medicine and my blood sugar is pretty well controlled. We're going to talk about that in a minute. What were we talking about? I used to tell people that obesity runs in my family, right? Because my mom was, as she got older, she was getting a little heavier. I wouldn't say obese though, just a little heavier. And my dad was always, he was 6 foot something tall, 6'3" or 6'4". He was always on the bigger side. I wouldn't say obese either, but bigger side, right? But my brother was big, I was big. So I used to tell people obesity runs in my family, right? But did it really run in my family, or did bad eating habits just run in my family? You know, I'm starting to look around. I used to tell people that it ran in my family, and then that whole genealogy thing website came along where you could trace your ancestors. And one of my one of my cousins did that and came back with a lot of these old-timey photographs of family, right? None of them were obese, not one of them, right? So these are all my ancestors, people that that it runs in my family. None of them were obese. So what happened? Does it run in my family or doesn't it? And I'm thinking, nah, probably not. It's how our eating habits have developed, right? And what makes me think that even more is I used to be in the military, right? I used to be in the Air Force. And in fact, I made a career out of it. I did 21 years. And at the end of my career, one of my duties included going around to different bases and inspecting their air traffic control facilities. And I was able to travel to Japan and Korea and all kinds of other places. But I loved going to Japan, but what really struck me about Japan was how there were no obese people. Now, of course, there's obese people, but you don't see them like you do in the United States. In fact, the United States right now, the last thing that I saw on our obesity rates in the United States, we're between 40 and 50% of our population here is obese. That's crazy. That's nuts. Because in Japan, the obesity rate in Japan is only 3.5%, right? So is it just because they're genetically superior to us as people? No, it's not that at all. It's their eating habits and the stuff that they eat, right? It's their fast food availability and what they actually eat for fast food, right? If I go into Japan, and it was amazing to me, like I'd go to a vending machine, and back then I was drinking Cokes and stuff like that. I would go to a vending machine and there'd be a line of Cokes at the top of it. And then there'd be a line of like non-sweet teas, then there'd be a line of sweet teas, and there'd be a line of different waters that you could buy in the vending machine. The most prevalent thing in the vending machine were things that weren't going to make you fat, right? as opposed to the one line of Cokes at the top that had sugar in them. Now, I think they must have been imported or something. But Japan having a 3.5% obesity rate is incredible, right? Walk into a Walmart, look around, right? Walmart's probably a pretty bad choice, but you can see where the 40 to 45% obesity rate in the United States comes from. And then you go to a Japanese, say, mall or anywhere for that matter and look around. You'll be lucky to find one or two Japanese people that you would call obese, and not to our standards of obesity. You know, we have some big people in the United States right now, and I'm not excluding their culpability in that, but our food industry and our government is culpable in making us sick, and the food that we're eating is why we're so fat, right? It's not how much we're eating, it's the food that we are eating is what's making us unhealthy, and that's crazy to me. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about some of the other stuff in Japan. Like, there's way more convenience stores in Japan. You would think, man, well, why isn't obesity higher if there's so many convenience stores? Because a convenience store in Japan isn't the same as a convenience store here. You go to a convenience store here in the US, you can get like deep fried burritos and jalapeno poppers that are deep fried and all kinds of crap like that, Cokes and Slurpees and all that kind. You go into a Japan 7-Eleven in Japan, you can get sushi, you can get apples, you can get a salad, fruits and vegetables, all kinds of stuff. It's ridiculous, right? It's a change, right? You can also get the unhealthy stuff because that is becoming more and more popularized over there as Japan becomes more westernized. But also as they become more westernized, they become more obese. Because I did mention that they're at 3.5% obesity rate today. 10 years ago, they were at 1%. So they're just getting started. McDonald's and Wendy's and all those places are just starting to move in over there. And they're becoming more popular with the younger generations because of the ads that they watch and the things that the social impact, the stuff that's in the movies, all that. They're attracted to that kind of food, right? And they're just going to follow suit in our obesity thing unless something doesn't change in a dang hurry, right? Here in the United States, breakfast for me on the way to work would be like a McGriddle or something. I'd stop by McDonald's and get a sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin, a hash brown, right? Maybe a Diet Coke, because you don't want the Coke, too many calories in the Coke, right? Sometimes I get 2 sandwiches. It's going to be a long morning. I got meetings till noon, right? I'm not going to be able to eat anything until 12:30. I'll just have 2 sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffins. That'll hold me over. And then when I get to work, I'll have a donut, right? No wonder we're obese, man. In Japan, a businessman on his way to the office may stop by a fast food place and get like a piece of chicken, right? Or fish, right? Not a fried fish even, a baked fish or something healthy, right? Or an apple on a stick. They eat healthy. Their meals are healthier for the most part than ours are. Another reason the Japanese are, in better shape physically than we are, they drink 5 times less the amount of soda per capita that Americans do, right? Americans drink the most soda in the world. By soda, some of you may call it Cokes or Pops. Sugar drinks, in other words, terrible for you, right? I used to be addicted to Coke, and then it was Dr. Pepper, and then I thought, I'll just get healthy and go Diet Coke. It turns out that's just as bad for you as the others, just for different reasons, right? So I quit that altogether, and I couldn't feel better. I'm on water now. I drink water. Sometimes I'll add some electrolyte stuff to it. Sometimes I'll have a non-sweet, tea or something. But Cokes are out of my life forever, even diet ones. I'm also coming to the conclusion that it wasn't hereditary, me being overweight. Back in 1960, right before I was born, not very many years before I was born, but right before I was born, 13% of the American population were considered to be obese. And like I said, now it's estimated between 40 and 45%, right? Just in those few short years, and I know it's been many years for some of you, but when you're 59 years old, it's a few short years since the 1960s, right? Back in the 1960s, there was also a 6% chance of an American having a chronic disease, something like diabetes or obesity or ADD or ADHD or Tourette's or narcolepsy or eczema. You see commercials on the TV for eczema all the time now, right? When was that a deal? Back then it wasn't, not even in the 70s and 80s, but in the 60s, only 6% of the American population had some form of chronic disease, right? Today it's 54%, not even today. In 2006, it was 54%. Why 2006? Because that's the last data that was reported by the National Institute of Health, right? Why is that the last report issued by the National Institute of Health, right? You got to ask yourselves these questions, guys, and we got to start thinking for ourselves. I used to believe in all these government-run places having my best interests in mind, but now I know that they don't. It's all about money, and it's always been about the money, right? I'm just now finding out about that, and I don't like it. It's amazing. It's 1960, 6% chronic disease in the American population. 2006, 54%. What do you think it is today? I wonder in 2024 what it is today. If the NIH would release those numbers, what they would be. You can speculate where they're at. It's got to be in the 60, 70% range, right? How do we get healthier? How do we get healthier? We improve the foods that we eat, and we can do that ourselves right now. It's a little bit harder because the rest of corporate America is not, and the places that own the food companies aren't really playing ball with us. But the more that we go and find those farm fresh eggs and we eat the healthier choices and avoid the other crap that they're selling and actually don't buy it, like don't buy that cereal for your kids with all those additives in that other countries don't even allow in their foods, right? Why don't they allow it? Because they stopped trusting the National Institute of Health years ago. And they came up with their own Institute of Health, and they knew that the chemicals that they're putting in our kids' cereal are poison. Right? So they don't allow it. We sell Cheerios overseas to the same Cheerios that we sell over here to our kids with all the poisons in it. We sell it overseas to the kids, but we take all the poisons out, right? Natural coloring and stuff like that over there, but not for our population. I don't know why. It makes me kind of mad. So if you're detecting a little bit of anger, this is why. I've been looking into this stuff, and it kind of has made me a little bit of madness, right? Back in the 1960s, 1 in every 10,000 kids born was said to have some sort of autism, right? Some degree of autism, right? Today, it's 1 in 34. Our kids are being born with some degree of autism, right? This all goes back to our food. I'm convinced of it. We need to get healthy, you guys. And if you've got kids, we need to help our kids figure out how to get healthy. The education's on us, right? Grandparents and parents, we have to educate, right? I didn't get that education as a kid because my parents believed the things that the government was telling them, right? They believed the news that they were watching on the TV were actual facts. Unlike most Americans today realize it's more of a narrative, right? It's not really a fact. It's what they want us to believe. That's not necessarily the truth, right? So we have to go out there and discover these truths on our own, and we can get there, right? And this is why some of these reports are disappearing from the interwebs. This is why the last report that the NIH did was in 2006 regarding, chronic diseases. 2006. So last week my glucose was 133. That was my glucose average. I test my blood a couple of times a day, and then I average out for the week, and I get to that average. My doctor said when I go over 140 on a week-to-week basis for 2 weeks, over 140 on my glucose, then I need to call her and we need to make an appointment. I've just done that, actually. I'm going in for an appointment to have my A1C redone, and we'll see where we're at with my actual A1C and whether I need to go back on any kind of diabetes medicine again. Here's an Easter egg for you. It'll probably be Mounjaro if I do go back on, but on a modified dosing regime. We'll talk about that in another video. My blood glucose last week was 133, and I was disappointed in that. I was disappointed because we're inching up to that. It's the 3rd week in a row that I've had an increase. This week, I'm happy to report that it's down to 128. So feeling good, eating good, everything's been going good this week with my glucose. Back down to 128, maintaining it through diet and exercise, no diabetes medicine. I came off the Mounjaro over 6 months ago. All right, so my weight last week was 155.6. That was down a little bit from my week prior, which I wasn't very happy about, because you guys that are in the know, that have been watching my vlog week to week, know that I'm shooting for a weight between 155 and 165, right? I don't want to go below 155, and I've been trying to gain weight up to my goal weight, believe it or not. This is coming from a guy that couldn't lose a pound for anything. And now I can't really gain it that easy either. Of course, I'm not going to use the help of ultra-processed foods to gain weight at all. I'm going to eat all healthy food. And when you're eating healthy, it's harder to gain weight, right? Your body adjusts better to healthy foods, right? Where if you overeat a little bit more on healthy foods, it just kind of passes it out. It doesn't really, I mean, you will gain weight. I've been trying it all week. And in fact, I've been trying it all week. Let's find out where we were. My weight last week, 155.6. Let's find out what it is today. All right, we're gonna pull out my handy dandy Renpho dusty scale here. We've been talking about my toenails. I was diabetic, I still am a diabetic. Once a diabetic, always a diabetic. A lady in a previous video pointed out how yellow and discolored they were, and I told her, I said, that's right. My podiatrist has me on this stuff that I put on them, and it's been taking care of it. They're getting a lot better. Let's find out what the weight is today. Last week, again, 155.6. And this week, that's good, 159 even. 159 even. Very happy with those results. That puts me almost right in the middle of my goal weight. 155 to 165. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my blood this week. And I appreciate you guys for continuing to watch my weekly vlogs. I see those views coming in, and it's keeping me honest, right? It's keeping me doing the right things. It's getting easier too with each passing week. My habits, my lifestyle changes, and the habits that come with that, the habits of staying in practice, of doing the right things and eating the right foods, is getting easier and easier. Every single week it gets easier. And it gets easier monthly. So it was way easier this month than it was last month. So things are going really good for me, you guys. And I appreciate you coming in and checking out my vlog. I think next week we should talk about something maybe a little bit more personal, and stay away from more of the politics of our food issues. Just know it exists. Do your own research, right? Do your own research. I'm continuously amazed by how much I thought I knew and by how much I actually don't know. Right? How much I thought I was educated and how much I really am not educated at all. You guys, will see you next week. Keep on keeping on.